So the first thing we're going to do, I'll let it finish doing this stuff. Let's go to our blocks, and I'm actually going to delete everything. So you click and hit delete on your keyboard and say delete. And you can just do that over and over again until these are all gone. And what we're going to do now is we're going to investigate something that, if for those of you who've done coding before, you would know as an array. They're called lists in this particular program. But we're going to create a list, and we're actually going to create two lists here. So let's do that. So over here, there are things called lists. Oops, list right here. And you can create lists. Now, save the empty screen. Oh, has all blocks removed? Yeah, that's fine. Save the empty screen. We saved all the blocks because over here the designer still has that, but we deleted all our blocks, which is fine. Anyway, they have these things called lists. Now, a list by itself can't just be floating in space. You have to actually assign it to what we call a variable and give it a name. So we're going to go to variables, and we're going to create what's called a global variable. We're going to change this to sounds list. So, or list of sounds or something like that. You can call it, I'm actually going to calculate sounds list. That way it's easy to see it's two words. And then we're going to take the lists and we're going to create a list like this. Boom. Okay. And basically we're going to just put all of our sounds in here. Now, our sounds are all, let me see, how can I get to the sounds? I'm trying to remember here. Let me look under any component. Do we have any button, any player? Oh, I did something silly here. Let me pause and try to remember how this is so I don't waste your time. Yeah, sorry about that. It just took me a minute to remember how to get to the sounds. But what the sounds are all associated with the player. So if you go to player and you look down here under crickets, you can pull this out and stick it as the first item in the list. And you can actually duplicate it and make it the second item in the list and then change it from crickets to lightsaber. So you can access all of your sound files. We're going to put them all in a list. Now, you're like, wait a minute, this list is only too long. Well, this is what this this blue dot is for here. You can add items to the list. So we're going to make it have space for 8 different items. So we just keep dragging these down. And you see as I add them in this sort of blue dot gear thing, it's actually adding them here. So I currently have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8 items there, okay? And now I'm going to duplicate this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I know it's a lot of the same thing over and over again here, but believe me, this is better than the other way. All right, so let's put these guys in, click them in. Right now they all say lightsaber. We're going to change each one to be a unique entity in this list. Oops, I made one too many, so I can right click on this and change it. Just go delete block. It pulls it out. And then we'll change these. Lightsaber is the second one, and perfect part is the third one. And again, I'll skip ahead for you. Okay, so I went through and put them in, and in fact, I went back and forth between my user interface and my blocks and put them in the same order because that's easier for me. Crickets, Wawa, correct, Darth Vader, Poot, Tacos, and Rickroll. And so I've got crickets, sad trombone, Price is Right ding, lightsaber, fart, Taco Bell, scream, and Rickroll. So I made a list, same order. I'm going to make a second list. Okay, this list, I'm going to go again to variables. I'm going to initialize this list to be buttons list. Okay, I'm going to go to lists, create a list, and put it in here. And then over here, you can find, if you click on a button, you can actually find its identity. So this very last item on the list here is the identity of the button. So that's the crickets button. Let's see, next would be the sad trombone button. I could do that. So you can change them around as needed. Again, I'm going to pause it. I'm going to populate this list. But what I want to do is I want to make sure the first item in this list matches the first item in that list. Since that starts with crickets, this is going to start with crickets. And the second one will be the trombone, and the third one will be the correct, and so forth and so on. So let's pause and do that work. Okay, so now we've got two lists. They're matching in their sequences. So we've got that taken care of now. Now, what we're going to do here, and this is where things get much more sort of streamlined. Over here under blocks, go down and click the plus button next to the word any component and drag over, I'm sorry, not drag over, click on any button. And there's when any button click. So let's put that, let's put it over here like this. We may have to slide some things over like this eventually, but there we are. Now what happens here is anytime you click any one of the buttons that are on the screen, it will activate this. And then it will, while it's doing that, it will create a temporary variable called component. And so you can access, and it will know which button it was. And by knowing which button it was, we can find out which sound to make, if that makes any sense to you at all. In fact, thinking about this, I may not have needed the button list to write this code. So I'm going to, but I did make it as a backup in case I did need it. So here's what we're going to do. Oh, yeah, I do need it. I take that back. I do need it. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to say, when you click the button, what we want it to do is find which button it is that you pushed, okay? So over here in lists, you can find something called index in list. What that is it finds where in that list from position 1 to position 8. So this is 1, position 2, 3, 4. They actually don't call it a position, they call it index. So index 1 is the first item in the list. Index 4 is the fourth item in the list. So you can find a particular thing. So if we take component, for instance, let me hover over that, get component, and I put it here, that means that if I can get this to go in here, it will find where the button you clicked is in the sequence here. Now you have to tell it which list. So the way you do that is you go over to list, or under variables I mean, and you can do this and click the down arrow here and choose the buttons list. So it's going to look for whatever button was pushed in the buttons list, so we do need the buttons list, and then give me that index. Now, it might be, well, what good does that do me? If I click the fart button, it's going to give me the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, what it does is it then allows me to play a sound from this list. So now we can come over here, go to the player, choose set player source. We're going to put that right here. We're going to delete this portion of it, and we're going to put list, select list item. So when you push a button, it's going to change the source of the player to an item from a list. Which list? Well, let's go to our variables. We're going to play it. Obviously, we're going to play from the sounds list. So when you click a button, it's going to play a sound from the sounds list. Which sound? The sound that corresponds to the same location as the button that was pushed. So this will set the, so basically what happens is you click a button. It knows which button you clicked. It says, if that, find where that button is for my button list. So it goes down, let's say I push the fart button. So it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to position 5. So this portion right here is basically a give the number 5. It looks for this thing in that list and tells you where it is. So it's going to say number 5. This is the same as if you went to the math here and put the number 5 in, supposing you hit the fart button. So if you hit the fart button, this would give you the number 5. So, since it finds that the fart button is number 5 in this list, then it's actually going to play, it's going to change the source of the player to the fifth item in the sounds list, which 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is the fart sound. If you push the crickets button, it's going to find the crickets button in this list. It's the first item. It's going to say index is 1, so it's going to select the first item from the sounds list and put it as the source for the player. Now you just come down to here, you go to player 1, you put start, stick this here. That is all the code for actually playing the sound. So when you click a button, doesn't matter which button it is, it'll find out which button it is, it'll find where that button is in this list, it'll take that same location and use the sound that's at that equivalent location in this list and apply it to that player. So what this should do, if it's written correctly, so we just have these two lists and we can add and remove to the list all day long, and that's all we have to change. So if I were to say, let's change one of my buttons to play a different thing, and we put a different sound in, it automatically works. None of the logic has to be repeated. So let's see how it works. Let's go to connect to the companion. Mine just got disconnected while I was writing all of that. Let's go into here and let me restart the app. Come on, start the app. Scan the QR code. It's going to upload that data. All right, here we go. I've got a screen that looks pretty much like this. If I click tacos, I get the taco sound. If I click crickets, I get the cricket sound. I click the mystery button. And that's the correct button. So, same basic functionality, but now what we have is this is using two lists to any button I click, it will know which button it is and automatically change the source of the player to the matching location in this other list. Now, when you want to edit it, it's fairly straightforward. All you have to do is upload the new media, change the name of the button you want to match, and it will and then over here, the new media, put the right media to go with the right button over here. There's even a more sophisticated thing called a dictionary, which can allow you to pair lots of things together. But that's enough for now. Pretty good lesson on how to use pairs, how to use lists that are equivalent to have a single set of actual code. Have fun with that, and we'll see you on Tuesday, I guess.